Hello and welcome to E-commerce Gold. This show is brought to you as always by Rewind Protection Suite. Get it installed on your Shopify store for peace of mind. Protection against things like deleting products accidentally, apps causing conflicts. It even gives you a staging environment to test all your changes before you push them to your live store. This show is also brought to you by SendLane, the company that is coming after Klaviyo's customers, and for good reason. They have an incredible product. It includes email, SMS, and reviews for free. They have an event coming up. Check out the link in the show notes. It's in San Diego in September. You should go if you're anywhere near. On to today's episode. Thank you so much for joining me today on EcomGold podcast. How you doing, sir?
Good. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat. It's been so long, and obviously I see you everywhere on Twitter. And I've heard your name mentioned more than once, and we're in quite a bubble of a network, I imagine. So I know all about your agency. I know a fair amount about you, but it's just one of those things we never cross paths. So I'm super excited to actually just have a chat with you and get to know what you're all about. But for anyone who maybe isn't in the D2C sphere, can you just give that kind of couple of minute overview as to your professional and personal?
Yeah. So I have been in e-commerce for about 10 years. I actually started a brand when I was in college, which got me into all this fun stuff. So a little bit more about me. I've been basically started a brand when I was 19, ended up nailing a job at an agency when I was 19, dropping out of school, dropping out of college, to just pursue that full-time role at an agency. And then over the next kind of like 5-6 years, I went from one agency, freelance, joined another. And then I was at one agency for about 4 years, became a junior partner there. And then that was kind of my last leg before jumping out and building Homestead, which is the agency that I'm definitely known for, a little bit more being the founder of. So Homestead, we're a growth marketing agency specializing in paid customer acquisition and retention, so email and SMS. I started Homestead. We're coming up on our 4-year anniversary here. So we are currently a team of 50 full-time employees. We've had a lot of growth over the last 4 years. I actually stepped down as CEO about a year ago. So my business partner, Riley, took over, and he's been doing an incredible job growing that business, growing the team, helping our clients grow. But we work with, any brands from launch brands all the way up to 9-figure brands. If you follow us on Twitter, you probably see our team talking with the Hexclad team a lot. They're a client that's been working with us for a while now. We work with other cool brands like, Brightlands, TRX. I could name quite a few, but that's the majority of kind of what got me into kind of where I'm at now, which is on the brand building side of things. So I started Homestead with the intention of like, if I can really help cultivate a team and build just like this environment of growth, hopefully I can then position that over to actually building my own brands, which is kind of what I did back when I was 19. And so over the last 2 years, I've been slowly starting to build out a portfolio of brands. So we are 100% bootstrapped at the agency. On the brand side, we haven't raised any capital. We've gotten a small note that was just debt that we ended up paying off for one of the brands. But outside of that, we haven't raised any outside capital for any of these businesses. But so yeah, I bought a notebook company called Public Supply in the very beginning. That was about 2 years ago. We're all like B2B mostly, so selling really high-end notebooks to boutiques. And then we've just started to build out more of like a custom wholesale program. So that's going good. That's a 6-figure revenue business. That's not a very big business at the end of the day. Overall, I've learned a lot from buying that business. I bought that off of Micro Acquire or Acquire now. So we can talk about that at some point if you want. I also launched an apparel brand let me think about this. No, 2 years ago. That has been growing nicely. We did kind of 0 to 100K in our first 30 days with that business. And that's been scaling steadily. That'll do kind of high 7 figures this year in revenue. That apparel brand will, which is really exciting. That'll kind of grow about 4x year over year. And then I've acquired two more brands in the last 6 months. One's in the kind of like home decor space, and then the other one is in the like cleaning space. That one's called Frey, the laundry detergent brand. So yeah, so building out a portfolio of brands now is kind of my main focus. I've built out a small team that's separate from the agency. So I have a team of 6 that's just working on the brands, completely separate from Homestead. And I'm just kind of CEO leading that team as we grow the brands now.
Perfect. Lovely and concise. Tons of information in there, though. We have such similar paths. I mean, you wouldn't believe the similarities in our journeys so far. I had an agency for 5 years. I think the only key difference is you've done a much better job than I did, and yeah,
I would
and
say
have more
you
to
never
bear
know.
at the end of it. But for anyone who hasn't run an agency, like feast and famine is the kind of classic term that's used, which is you either have too much work or too little at any given time. So to have 50 employees in an agency, it's a tremendous amount of pressure. Um, I think we got up to 16 at one point, and it's a really difficult business model to get right. And from everything that I've seen, you've done such a great job at that, which just gives me every confidence in your ability to take on 4 brands plus an agency. You know, anyone else looking at this would be like, you're crazy. I think I forget the name, Bamboo Earth, whatever they tried to do with their
Oh
single
yeah, 4x400.
four by
Yep.
400, and there was a lot of learnings there. You know, fair game to anyone who wants to try anything is my opinion. I think, have you got any resistance from people saying you should just be focused? I mean, that's the classic, isn't it? You should just focus on one thing, chase
Yeah.
too many things at once, you can't catch them in. What's your response to
Yeah.
that?
Well, I mean, I think your point about earlier about like feast or famine for the agency. So we've been we've been fortunate that we've never done an ounce of outbound at the agency. It's all been either referrals or people reaching out to us. I think in agency business, like at the end of the day, really just comes down to the quality of work that you're doing for your clients, and then trying to find ways to be creative about retaining them, right? Even if that just means like adjusting scope or adjusting, payment terms potentially, or adjusting, service offering. Um, yeah, I mean, to get to 50 employees, I never thought we would get that big, to be honest. Like when I remember starting Homestead, I'm like, we're going to be 7, 8 awesome growth marketers. We're going to keep this super lean. Um, but the inbound just kept kind of happening. And then I think over time, the more that people see, oh wow, they're working with this bigger brand, or like they have seems like they have more awesome people. I think us being on Twitter and a lot of our team being on Twitter has helped us recruit some incredible people. It's definitely been one of those things where like our team has helped market the agency for us, which has been incredible. So anyways, yeah, I think focus is definitely what everyone that kind of pushes back on my thought process of like, can I go from building an agency to building this like holdco of brands, or even like an individual brand? It's why I stepped down as CEO, to be honest. I just knew that I wasn't going to be able to give our clients the time and attention that I wanted to, um, for that business and team, honestly, to like continue to grow successfully. I probably spend about, I don't know, 3 to 5 hours a week on the agency still. It's mostly just like high level conversations with our leadership team, and then my business partner, Riley. But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, we are fortunate that we've, been through the ups and down swings of D2C, and we've learned a lot over even just the last 2 years, that have positioned us to do kind of this like holdco model a little bit differently, right? So, looking back even 2 years ago, 4x400, you mentioned them as an example. They had, I think, 3 or 4 brands. They were struggling to gain traction for 3. They found traction for 1. They basically, sold off 3, kept 1, and are just doubling down on Bamboo Earth, which is run by Dave, who's an incredible, very, very smart, talented marketer, and just great operator. But for us, with the ability to do multiple, it just really comes down to the fact that like we've learned how to run profitable customer acquisition at the agency, and we've been able to do that in like 4 different categories over here. We've also like kept the team super super lean, on the brand side. I know like over at 4x400, their team was quite a bit bigger when they had those 4 brands than where we're at now with 4 brands. So I think that has a lot to do with it too, right? When you run a really lean team, you can kind of push a little bit harder and take some bigger risks. So but to the point about focus, I don't know. I think like one brand, four brands, maybe even more coming up. For us, it's more about like, can we gain traction? Can we hit $1 million a month in revenue? And until we kind of know that that's a hard yes or a hard no, we're just going to keep, either launching more, buying more. And then the plan is if we really can't gain enough traction to hit 1 million a month in revenue, we'll either sell that business, liquidate it, or just foreclose it if it just doesn't shake out at the end of the day. But right now, we're taking a lot of bets. This year is kind of about taking a bunch of bets um, after acquiring a couple more brands, and we'll have a really good understanding by, I think, end of Q4 of like how many of these brands can actually hit that kind of million a month revenue pace versus not. And then the plan is, like I said, to either sell or foreclose on the ones that aren't working out.
So it is a asymmetric bet, spread betting, to try and find a winner to take further. That's the
Yeah,
strategy.
and I think like each one that we like buy or acquire or start, we like learn more and more and more, right? So like the first one was this notebook company, right? It was a micro acquire. I've shared these numbers publicly before, but it was, for sale for 150 grand. I bought it with cash. It was the dumbest thing I could have ever done, right? Like the agency was going good. I like didn't want to, didn't know enough about just like financing, getting debt to acquire businesses. There's SBA, like there's so many opportunities for us here, like in the US, to buy businesses and like leverage debt to help them grow. Didn't do any of that. So like also that business is so niche that it just like isn't a great product to sell on the traditional D2C model, which is paid ads, right? So like we've really struggled with that one. We're a B Corp, so we like donate funds at the end of the year to buy school supplies for kids, which is honestly the main reason why we still have it. If it didn't have that kind of giving portion to it, I definitely would have sold it or tried to like get rid of it by now. um, but like that one was just like way too small of a market. We can't run ads like that are effective. People don't just like buy $16 notebooks off of ads. It's not like an impulse purchase thing. Um, so that one we learned a lot on. The apparel brand, I feel like we took a lot of the learnings just from the agency to try and apply there. We kept the SKU count really low. We were able to run it, definitely really broad. It's a product that any consumer can use. Um, and we leveraged that into buying this like home decor brand. One thing there, again, like made the mistake that's like a little bit more niche. I think like that brand will like potentially max out at like 5 or 6 million in annual revenue. I could be wrong, but that one definitely like we shot again a little bit too small. Like the market for that product is just smaller. um, and then Frey, which I feel like has honestly been our best acquisition to date. Laundry detergent, everyone uses it. It's a great product. It solves a problem. Right now we're selling a product that you know reduces and removes the idea of like having plastic. It's really light. It ships. The cost of shipping is really low. There's a subscription element to it, so like repeat purchase and LTV are just like built into it. um, we can run broad ads. Like it just like kind of checks all the boxes. Our margins are great on it. Like we've continued to like learn a little bit more and more and more. So I think, yeah, asymmetric bet, we keep taking more bets. And I think like each one is like getting a little bit better over time.
If you had to give a kind of doctor's report or a nurse's report on the health of each of those companies you just mentioned, good health,
Yep.
bad health, life support, or peak performance, where could you just go through each one and give us an update as to where you would
Yeah,
put each one?
totally. So public supply notebook company, um, it's like hanging in there, what I would say. So we have plenty of inventory now. We're rolling out on a few marketplaces like for wholesale. Um, I definitely wouldn't buy something as niche as that business. We tried to crack like wholesale and fair, basically trying to get like stores to buy through our fair account. It's been hard. Like B2B is tough. So that one's like hanging in there, not really like booming. Like I said, it's a 6-figure business this year. um Apparel brand, like on the way up. Very, very healthy. That one, So last year we did 1.4 million in revenue. The year prior we only had like 3 months. We did about 300K the first like technically year in the first 3 months. 1.4 last year. I mean, we're pacing. We should probably do close to like 6 to 7 million this year for that one. That one's going really, really well. Margins are decent. Consumers are loving the product. Things are looking good there. Um, that one, like, we can talk about this later. We can talk about this now if you want, but basically trying to find a way to 4x our inventory buys. It's more like 5 or 6x our inventory buys last year to this year. Was like a massive challenge because I'm like, okay, we definitely have product market fit. We're acquiring customers profitably. How do we like, now go and scale this without raising any funds or like, losing any equity for any raise, right? Um, and so one thing that I did, and I'll just break it down right now, is so we manufacture the products for the apparel in the US, which our costs are definitely a bit higher than if we made them offshore or anything like that. But the trickiest part is like the raw materials that we use is like 50% of our cogs. Like that's kind of what makes our product really special is like the actual materials that we use for the apparel. Um, so because that makes up 50% of our cogs, so then think like, oh, we have to go buy 5 to 6 times more raw materials this year to actually produce the products to grow by that much. So what I ended up doing is I got our manufacturer to place a PO with our company for the raw materials, where normally like they would, buy the raw materials themselves to make the product. So I was the then buyer and importer of this raw material, and I took that to a bank and basically said, "Hey, I have a PO from my manufacturer for 7 figures of this raw material. Can you lend me money to then buy this raw material?" Which then that was kind of like our like debt facilitator to then
Holy shit,
go
that's so
and
smart.
yeah. So that allowed us to basically cover 50% of our cogs, which is all, the majority of it, upfront through debt. So yeah, so we've been importing our own raw materials this year, which has been going smoothly. It's funny, like we also like by doing that, we like kicked out a broker, which then brought our cogs down slightly too. So um, anyways, that's been a big win for that brand. Um, and like I said, that one should be a rocket ship this year. So that apparel brand's healthy. Home decor brand, we're in retail, so that's been my first experience with retail. So we are in Bass Pro and Cabela's. If you're familiar, have ever heard of those in the States? Basically, it's all like outdoor hunting, fishing type of stuff. And that's been really interesting, right? So same kind of thing there, right? So like Bass Pro Cabela's is starting to place POs. We just got like a commitment for 20,000 units for like Q3 or Q4, Q1. Now I'm trying to like take those, learn how to go take those and shop those around to banks to go get debt, to go buy the inventory to make sure we can like have the inventory for that, which then covers inventory for retail and inventory for D2C and Amazon. So that one I'd say is like generally healthy. It's definitely a game of can we 4x inventory year over year again? Like that's kind of like the tough spot. These are all growing businesses, but to finance inventory with just debt and trying to find the cheapest cash is like a lot of work. Um, and then Frey was, if you would have talked to me 3 months ago, I would have said like dumpster fire, nightmare. We bought the business. There was so much cleanup to do. They were on like their own custom subscription app. They're on a headless site. Like we couldn't touch anything for the first like couple months. So we had to re-platform all of that moved over to Stay AI for subscription, which they've been amazing to work with. Um, redesigned the site fully, relaunched the site. They had a bunch of personal care products. We killed all the personal care products, like just a lot of work in the first few months. But these last couple of months, we've just then been doubling down on, building funnels to acquire customers profitably. And that's what we've been able to do. So yeah, that thing is a rocket ship now. And now it's, just like all the other ones, it's, can I buy inventory? Can I find, financing for inventory that's going to, not break the bank for us and still keep our margin pretty strong. So yeah, Frey's in good standing.
Nice, thank you. So let's double down on the inventory financing piece because a lot's changed since the days of Phil Knight shopping around Blue Ribbon at the banks and trying to
Yeah.
secure some capital that way. But it sounds like you're sort of going back to that mode of capital acquisition and going to these high street banks. I guess they're high street banks You just walk us through like what your strategy's been there. I know you mentioned some really clever tactics that you've used, but more specifically, just can you give us an idea of like what the market's like at the moment? Like, can you give us a fly on the wall of one of those meetings? How do they go? Like, how do you pitch it in? Is it salesy? Is it like, just give us kind of a picture of everything?
Yeah. So, you know, in Q1, basically my entire focus was, and this is the same thing Q1 last year, funny enough, it's like after Q4, you kind of see what's possible. And then you're like, okay, I got to go double down and buy more, buy more inventory. So, um, yeah, I mean, I talked to for the most part, every, digital funding, solution out there, right? The Clearco's of the world, Wayflyers, Amplas, Settle, all of them. And I think a lot of them are great, but since they've seen so many brands go bankrupt, foreclose, they've lost a lot of money. A lot of these kind of fintech companies, and because of that, they've really tightened up their restraints of like who they're willing to fund and the terms that they're willing to fund for, right? So if you're a brand doing less than, I don't know, 150 200k USD a month, it's going to be hard to like go get decent terms and enough money from one of those partners. That's going to be worth it, right? I mean, like Shopify Capital is incredible. It's super fast, super easy, but their terms are terrible, right? I mean, like you're going to pay an extremely expensive fee for just utilizing 10 15 grand, right, that you pull at a time. So I went to more of a traditional bank route. Um, and for me, it was just shopping around with a bunch of local banks. So I'm not with like, I'm not with the JP Morgans. No one like that really cares about me. It's still too small right now. But yeah, I went and shopped with a bunch of local banks and basically try to figure out what's all out there. Right. So in the US, there's a bunch of awesome programs with the SBA, which I haven't taken advantage of yet, but um, the majority of what we've been doing is like a revolver, they call them, or just like a rolling line of credit, or just even like an inventory buy loan, right? Where like all that it's used for is, I've got 4 or 5 months to utilize the capital, buy the inventory and then owe the bank back. In terms have been pretty good, right? I mean, like prime plus 0.5%, prime plus 1%. So we're talking, 8% interest, which is not great, but um, at the end of the day, they've been able to lend significantly more than all of the fintech companies out there. And like I said, with like the apparel brand, you kind of have to get a little bit scrappy and like think through what kind of clever ways can I do this where they might be able to lend me more money. So I think that's the big thing. A lot of it comes down to then just having like super tight financials, right? So like if you're a small ecom brand, having a good bookkeeper, um, and really staying on top of that, I feel like is the key. Being able to pull all of your your P&Ls, your balance sheets, having like a really robust forecast where it's like this is what we've been doing, here's what we're expecting to do. You kind of need all those pieces, right? So I think the local bank is a great option. If you can find a partner. To me, I shopped around, I don't know, maybe 6 7 banks here, and tried one. They got me a decent rate, a decent amount, and then shop basically leverage that into another deal to get an even bigger line of credit. So a lot of it just comes down to just like staying persistent about it too.
Hey, me checking in. Hope you are enjoying the episode so far. It's brought to you by SendLane. We've already spoken about why you should be considering moving to SendLane if you're doing email, SMS, or reviews. Reviews are free with SendLane, just so you know. But they have a commerce roundtable in San Diego on the 18th and 19th of September. So please do go and register if you're in the area or if you can make the trip. I'm sure they'd be delighted to see you. There's going to be some incredible talent there. It's great guests and great talks. So do check it out. Is it a standardized template? As in each bank you go into, they ask the same sort of questions, you have the same sort of answers, or is it more of a storyboard? Are you painting a picture for them and trying to like sell them on the idea of why they should give you some money? That's the first part. And the second part of the question is, when they offer you it, is there obviously you have your terms, you have the interest, you have the amount. Is there any other expectations that are maybe like read between the lines expectations? Like, okay, please make sure you have this much always in the bank, or please make sure you do these three or four things. Is there anything like baggage attached to the deal?
Um, so first question, I mean, they all pretty much ask the standard stuff, right? P&L balance sheet, last year's revenue. So like this is again where One of my mentors has told me like the banks, anyone really will, lend you money and will love to lend you money when you don't need it, right? Like after you don't need it. So, um, that's the hardest part, right? It's just getting and bootstrapping and trying to get to a certain size where then you have enough historical data that then they can say, okay, I can, reduce my risk and take on this bet. Um, but yeah, I mean, so they're asking for pretty much all the same thing, right? They love to see, last year's as many years of information as possible in financials as you can give them. If you don't have that, you don't have that, right? And then that's where the storytelling really comes in. So for me, for like, the apparel brands, to get that kind of like finessed financing to buy the raw materials and all that kind of stuff. That was a big storytelling piece, right? I mean, like having the agency, talking to them about the brands that we work with there, talking to them about, the traction that we have and how, we were able to scale so quickly in the first 30 days. And it's just been an inventory constraint ever since. I think the other big thing too there is just like being very, very clear with them and allowing them to have some kind of like sub terms in the agreement where like for mine, it's just as like just for inventory. So for my like rolling line of credits, they do the wiring, like the wire transfers to the manufacturer. So I actually don't like have my hands on all those funds, right? So it's not like I'm going to go get, whatever, a $500,000 line of credit. And then I'm going to just pull 200K and just like take it as a draw for like salary. Right. That's the other big piece. So I think like the other side of it too, is just like getting to know them, as much as possible, and just like personally getting to know them. Like I've sent, my products to like our bankers that they can like, have some themselves, right? Stuff like that, right? They love free shit like that. So I think anything like that that you can do to get them more bought into the long term. Um, One other like approach that I had, which I didn't need to do, is I was planning to just run ads in my hometown here, and just like pummel ads in my hometown like the week leading up to me having a bank conversation, because my thought was like, okay, the chances that they see these ads is going to go up a lot higher. They're going to see it, and then I'm going to come in and talk about it. So I didn't need to do that, but like that was kind of in my back pocket if I wasn't able to secure the funds that I needed. Um, yeah, I mean, again, it's just like doing what you can, right? When you're trying to bootstrap, you're trying to grow a brand, like having the financials to buy the inventory, honestly, is probably the hardest part if you found product market fit. So, um, yeah, that's kind of been my approach so far.
Yeah, it reminds me of, I don't know how long you've been in the ad game. We're guessing as long as me, if not longer. I remember you mentioned on another podcast that you've been in the world of Magentos, so I also share your pain there, and that tells me how long you've been in the game. Some people are still
Yep.
using that thing. Um, so yeah, I remember a time where you used to be able to use Facebook numbers at the end of people's profile to identify their profile. And then for events, for example, we used to work with B2B clients running Facebook ads, and they'd have silly amounts allocated to stands at events. And we'd say, right, give us all of that budget, don't do your stand. And we'll get an event list of the attendees going to X event in London at the Excel. We'll target all of those people, we'll find them on Facebook on their profiles, copy and paste that unique identifier, which was just at the end of the URL. Like your profile had a
Yeah.
unique number, and then you could re-upload those as an audience and then target a location within like 0.5 of a kilometer of the event venue, massive event venue,
Hmm.
and then upload that audience. And it was just like printing money for these people. You can't do that anymore. I'm not even sure how legal it was when we did do it, but it worked really well.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of similar. Well, it's not that similar, but that's such a good idea, just saturating a
Same
certain
same thought
location.
process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love all these like little, you've got so many of these, and it's just from being in the game for so long, especially as an agency, because you just have to think about some of these things, like where a brand or a specific company might come into it with um, their way of thinking. You have all these other things that an agency are like nice little things to know that maybe other people wouldn't know. You can just add them on as like tactical in plays. One thing I wanted to ask you is like, how much do you value the experience you've had at an agency, both internally for yourself coming into this, and also when you're having conversations with banks and others? How well does that play into the story of, look, I've run an agency with these brands for this long?
Yeah, I'll answer the paying part first. They don't really care, to be honest. They just want to see the financials of the business that they're lending, right? Like
Yeah.
they're not lending Homestead, money. Um, but so they don't really care, which kind of sucks, right? So it's more about like the financials of the actual brand that we're trying to lend for. Now on the other side, like I wouldn't be remotely as successful on the brand side without the agency. Like hard stop. Also, I was able to hire two employees that just worked on the brand side under the agency for the first few months, right? So like the agency was able to help us like fund those employees for the first 2 months before the brands could even afford to pay for those employees. So we originally had, like a two-person team under Homestead that was just working on the brands. And then we pulled that, apart. And now it's just a completely separate entity that are employees that work on the brand. So, I mean, from a financing standpoint of all the inventory, like I wouldn't, some of these numbers to some people are like, holy cow, that's a lot of growth very fast. How are you funding the initial inventory? Like none of that would be happening without the success of the agency, right? Like the amount of capital that I've put into these brands only because of Homestead. So, um, from a skill set standpoint, like I can't even like if anyone wants to start brands and is struggling to start brands, working in an agency or starting an agency, I think is like the best approach, right? Because it's not just it's not just like the how do you run the ad account, how do you set up Klaviyo? It's not just like the work, right? It's like all the nuanced conversations that you have with all of these founders and the connections that you make, right? So like for me, if I ever now need, I don't know, what is the best app for, we just brought fulfillment in house for three of our four brands. Um, I put it up on Twitter, but then I also reach out to like my network of brand founders that I've met over the years at the agency. And it's like, what's everyone using for fulfillment? And it's just right away, I have like 7 answers within a couple minutes. It's like, okay, cool. Now I can go make that decision much faster. So I think like just, the relationships have been like a massive piece and a massive hack to building the brands and building them faster. Is just like that, response time of all of these people. If I have a question, um, that we've helped grow over the years, right? Like we've done our part to help their businesses grow. And now they, who are amazing operators, amazing people at all the other things, products, finance, um, logistics, like they now want to take that knowledge that they have and share that back with me. So yeah, definitely wouldn't be wouldn't be what we're doing with the brands without the agency.
I think with the agency side as well, I don't know if you agree, but you get such exposure. You might come into an agency with one skill set that you're really good at. Maybe it's media buying, creative, whatever that might be. But then as you start to bring clients on, they start to ask for more things. And I'm speaking for myself here. If a client asks for something and I don't know personally how to do it, there's money on the table. If you're trying to grow the business, you're not going to say no unless it's something that you just don't think you can deliver. So you try and find a way to do it. And that process repeats and repeats and repeats until you're at a point where I don't know how many services you offer at Homestead, but I'm sure it's more than one. And you end up offering this breadth of services. But as an agency owner, or at least someone in a high seat at an agency, you have to be able to talk the talk, because you're talking the talk with people that are doing it day in, day out. So the only way to get good is to actually get good. And I think that's such a credit to people who have run agencies. There's a guy here called Danny Buck in the UK. Don't know if you know him. He's got Crafted. His
Yep.
wife has got Honu. He's done a few brands, but he came out of an agency as well. Small team. Very similar thing to what you're saying. Small team executing really well and operating 8-figure brands. I think with less than 20 people. Don't quote me on that, but just pretty cool stuff. Balancing lifestyle. So here comes number 3, me, because I am also looking to do what you are doing or have done. So I spun out of my agency, which I started, and before that I was at an agency. And now I want to deploy some capital and I want to build a brand. My personal passions are CrossFit. Everyone's sick of me saying that, but that's where I am. There is some benefits to that in terms of the space. It's very clicky, it's very bubbly, it's quite big, it's growing, and there's not much product innovation. Where you might go into a bodybuilder gym and see a lot of Gymshark knocking around, typically what you would see in the CrossFit gyms, you don't really see a dominant brand. There's a couple, but they have quite specific connotations. They're quite pigeonholed. Anyway, I thought what would be fun to finish out this conversation would be for you to give me some kind of play on how I can grow this business from 0 to 100. I will answer any questions and I will give you some information up front, and also bring in what I've heard you talk about before in other podcasts, your sort of 0 to 1 playbook, and one that you've used, I think, extensively with your own brands. So that's where I'm at. I don't know how this is
Cool.
going to go, but we'll see how it
Yeah,
goes. I'll
I
hand
love
it
it.
over to you. What questions would you ask?
Okay, so first thing is, okay, the product that you focus on, I wouldn't entirely focus on just thinking that it can sell in CrossFit. I would think maybe I can sell this to a CrossFit audience, but then who else could I sell this to? We have worked with brands at the agency that are in that space, and it's smaller than you think when it comes to advertising. Like it's not the biggest category in the world. So are you going to build $100 million brand around CrossFit apparel? Probably not. But could you build a 7-figure brand doing it? For sure. So just knowing that going into it, I really like when you think about a product and you think about what are all the use cases of this product, right? So like I've shared this example for like my apparel brand, but this is a product that everyone in the world could use, but like what are all the use cases for it? So we sell like an outdoor enthusiast type of apparel product. Let's just say it's not this, but let's just say like it's a hat or a beanie or something like that, right? Who could all use a beanie? Could, CrossFitters wear this beanie in the winter if they're working out outside? I mean, like probably not, but like could a runner wear it outside? Could someone that's into like hunting or fishing wear this outside, right? Like what else could, what other categories or what other use cases could you sell that product for? Um, I think you finding a product that solves a problem will always sell better than just a brand. I mean, there's been, the Gymsharks of the world, there's like Young LA, there's a bunch of brands that have made it work, right? I just feel like if you can create a product that actually solves a problem that could be used for multiple use cases, um, it could be great. So like one, I mean, this is just like super random, but I was just scrolling. I think I was on YouTube Shorts or something like that, and there was a guy that was just doing like, I don't even know, 10,000 pull-ups over the course of like a week or something like that. And he was using like these sponges that you would use in like your kitchen for like cleaning dishes to like hold over the pull-up bars, like he wouldn't get blisters or anything like that, right? So something like that is like such a simple product that anyone that's in the workout space that wants to do pull-ups could use. I mean, it might be perfect for CrossFitters because they're trying to do muscle ups and stuff like that, right? But it solves a problem, and it's such a simple product. Your margins would probably be great on it if you actually like sold these like pull-up sponges. I don't know. Like this is just an idea that like came to my mind this morning.
Can
But
I
like,
show you what a pull-up sponge looks like in real life? Hang on, give me 2 seconds, everyone. It's unlikely during this conversation that something on your store will break. Someone will delete something, but it can happen. So please install Rewind, and you can listen to the rest of this episode without having to worry.
is this your product?
This is one of them. These are pull-up sponges.
Oh my God.
I might have to
gotta be kidding me.
pull-up sponges. Nice bit
That
of
is wild, dude.
neoprene on the back for comfort on the wrist. Nice. There's a lot of innovation going on. Like this is split sewed, and there's some interesting stuff going on. But yeah, this is our latest sample of pull-up sponges. I like it.
Amazing, dude. Yeah, that's wild. So anyways, right, like it could be great for CrossFit, but obviously like anyone that's working out can use it, right? Anyone that has a home gym, whatever, right? So I think like just not niching yourself down too much, but making products that solve problems. So like you're already headed in that right direction, right? I think that was just my first bit on like product, is just like trying not to niche down so hard and thinking like, can I expand from here? Because again, like the way that as Meta's like algorithm and everything is working now, the ability to run broad and use like creative to like find your customers is like what's working best. So trying to think of products that you can run a little bit more broad versus just being like, okay, can I run this to a CrossFit interest audience that is probably going to convert well, but how much scale will I get out of that?
Here's the fundamental question that I get. So I've got limited capital. Everyone's got limited capital, but I've got a limited capital going into this, right? So something like that I just showed, the grips. Is one dominant player in the space. Not much, there's two or three. Anyway, the point being is that they're fairly high margin, easy to sell products. The idea being is that, do you try and find a hero product and then match that to a niche audience and scale off that into other products and diversify? That was one option. Or do you do more of your approach, which is find something that's got a much bigger TAM and then try and find ways to tailor it to specific audiences and tap on doors, hope one opens, and then double down. It may be in rock climbing and you're like, fuck, I didn't expect that, but hey, I'm here to make money.
So I can just give you, so like the apparel brand, for example, was the second thing, right? So like I was running this like individual product to runners, hikers, and then we tried hunting as an audience, and it just clicked. And like I never would have thought hunters would have loved my product, but it just smashed. And we're like, okay, well, we're just going to double down on that for now. And then since then, we've been able to expand back out to hiking and other, running and cycling and other categories. But I think just like having the ability to test all of those in the very beginning, just gives you more opportunity, right? Because you don't know, right? I mean, like there's, I'm seeing online here, like I just searched what you were posting. There's other brands that sell products like that. I mean, it's not like that is like this completely brand new thing that's never existed before. You're making modifications to it. You're still solving the problem. Yeah, I mean, I think like having the opportunity to test other like use cases is the way that I describe it. Use cases, markets, whatever you want to say. I think gives you a better chance of winning because now you're not just limited to one audience that might be like, already bought into Rogue Fitness's, solution for it or something like that.
Makes a lot of sense. So that's one product, and Apparel is the next. And I've spent a lot of time thinking about innovation, not necessarily material innovation, a bit like you've invested in, but more in feature function innovation, specifically to do with what can be done with the apparel that you're wearing beyond how it looks and beyond how it feels, functionally, which is important in certain arenas. I feel like the reason why I did that was to give me something to talk about, primarily to give me something to demo that's different, that stands out, and gives people a reason to actually go, I wonder why, or it's worth a try, or at least I'll look at it. That's why I did it. And also because I thought it, would be quite handy. Were you profitable? So one of my biggest fears is placing that initial order, right? Because it's an innovation in, well, it's a way. Every factory I've spoken to says just simplify. It's your first product, simplify. Just do this instead. They just want to print what they normally print. I want them to do something a bit more custom. I can get that to be done. The MOQs are higher. So investing in that first run and getting those, first products with your apparel brand, were you pretty much profitable straight away when you're running ads?
It took us about 30 days to crack a profitable new customer acquisition. But in those 30 days, again, we had the ability to test all those different audiences, right? Most of them weren't, and then one of them started to stand out, and then we doubled down on the one that was standing out. Now, for you, it's more of like if you're going to pick one product to go to market with, it's got mostly one use case. Then it's more about just like positioning, right? What are the ways that I can sell this product? Is it just about the aesthetic that annoys people? Is it that that they actually will get stronger using it, right? It's like, what are all the benefits that they can gain by using this product? And your go to market is going to be more about testing all of those unique benefits and seeing what resonates best. Where for me, it wasn't even necessarily benefit leading first, it was more use case first, and then we like double down on benefit from there. Now, as far as like MOQs, were we profitable? I mean, I was pretty sure because of our margins, because of just our experience at the agency, that we could crack it. So like the first PO that I placed was, I think, like 50 grand, which is a pretty big bet. Not massive, but like big enough that it was like, okay, if this doesn't work out, that's going to sting. And
Can I
I
ask
think
you just quickly on that? How many product types was that? Not colors and sizes, but how many actual individual products was that PO against?
one.
One. Oh shit.
Yeah.
That's a huge
Yeah.
bet. That's a huge
Yeah.
bet.
Yeah. But there were variants, right? So like different
Yeah.
color sizes, things. But one product. Yeah. Um, Yeah, I mean, it was a big bet, but I think like the thing is I knew that there was a bunch of things that it solved. Like there was a bunch of benefits that I could position, and there were a bunch of potential use cases for the product. So it's like, okay, I might have 20 potential shots at this. One of them should work out, and if one of them doesn't work out, then maybe I should stick to the agency and not go down the brand route. But yeah, I mean, I think for you, I think simple is better. I mean, like, just honestly, I would always tell anyone to do that. So like starting with one product, I mean, there's nothing wrong with also just like pushing through not even 1,500 unit PO and selling out and being done with it, because the thing is that's only like 500 people, right, or less than 500 people that bought. um that's not a big amount, that's not a large amount of people that they're going to be like upset that you're sold out then for 3 months while you restock, right?
Mm.
um I think people are always like, oh, I don't want to sell out. If you sell out, that's great. Like, if anything, that's just going to build like the idea of like fear of missing out for the people that maybe bought or told their friend about it and you're sold out. If they go buy a competitor, so be it. Like, there's always opportunity to like sell to more people. So um yeah, I mean, I would keep it simple as possible. I would keep like variants this simple as possible. Like the product you showed me, I'd probably stick with just one. I don't know if I'd go with multiple colors, anything like that. I would just stick with one. Because at the end of the day, like, I would rather have my time and energy not worried about, like, for us, like we had, two colors with our apparel product, and then three sizes. So we had 6 SKUs
Hmm.
total, one product. But like, if I could have just went with three, I probably just would have went with three. Like, I think we would have figured it out just as easily with 3 SKUs versus six, like one color versus two. Um,
Yeah. My question next is then, um, definitely keeping the variance low, mainly because of cost, but also because I don't know what people want. My next question is how many types of product? Because like you've just seen, you've got some grips there. I've got some shorts, I've got a t-shirt, and then what I've done in order to take advantage and try and increase the AOV, in order to try and build out some bundles and just try and get as profitable as possible in that first purchase, but also as a potential way to acquire customers with advertising more cheaply, is I've got some loss leaders built in. So things that are trending at the moment, like those big cups, whatever they're called, 40-ounce cups or whatever they are. They're big in the US. They're not big in the UK yet, but they're trending in the right direction. So I've just stuck the branding on that. I'll sell them lower than market rate, and that gets someone on the site who I can then hopefully upsell the other products to as a test. But launching straight out of the gate, would you say just do one or two products really, really well and focus on that, build landers, listicles, and just drive and through sales of those? Or like I said, 5 or 6 products, maybe 2 of them are loss leaders to get people in the door, and then try and upsell them, and just have a bit more of a comprehensive offering with the aim of increasing that AOV and trying to get some more profitability or acquire a customer a little bit cheaper. What route would you advise?
I mean, I would do the grips and the bottle, and that's it. I think like the shorts and the shirt, like, how many other apparel brands are there out there? If you're trying to sell your hero product, what's the chance that you upsell a shirt or a pair of shorts? Probably like, 5 to 10% of transactions, you'd maybe add in another product like that. If you feel like there's opportunity with the bottle concept, like, go with both of those, right? I build out funnels for both of them individually. Um, and then bundle them together, or use them as like a cross sell upsell and checkout, where if you're just pushing the grips, then push the bottle in the checkout upsell or post purchase upsell. If you're pushing the bottle, push the bottle first and then use the grips as like your other one. I think like trying to go with too many products, I mean, I think I could be wrong, but like, it feels like the apparel part of it is less of a solution to the market. Like, I would focus on the ones that are, a clear like problem solution that you're solving something and that the market hasn't, seen yet. So I would start with those out of the gate, and then you can always add in more, right? I see apparel for this kind of concept as more of like an add-on. Like, I want to support the brand type of product, which is, you know, probably 10% of your customers will want that if they're really into the grips, but not more than that. Like, I think doubling down on your hero product will always produce more. So that's what I would do if I were you.
Makes it cheaper as well. So good advice there. All right. In terms of how long have we got here? Oh, 1 minute. Okay. 1 minute, power minute. How do I get to 100 grand?
How do you get to 100 grand?
Yeah.
Okay, so listicle, you have to run listicles if you're driving cold traffic. Like, there's, if you don't run, static images or videos to a listicle before a product page, like, you're missing out. I can tell you without a doubt that if you do that on like a super simple build out, it'll perform better than driving traffic to a PDP all day, hard stop. So there's that. Now, from an ad standpoint, I love static images. I think you can come up with some like really good concepts there. It's the best and easiest way to test angles and hooks and like value props in those static images versus trying to produce really, really good videos. Usually we'll start with static images, and then if we find some winners there, then we'll turn those into videos or hooks in videos and then double down on videos. You'll always get more scale out of videos than you will on images, but I think images are the way to start, just static images. From a site standpoint, this is where
Give
like
me a quick insight on product photography, would you? Product photography. Where do I go with that?
So you're going to want like use case specific stuff. So like, honestly, okay, so I would probably spend a very small budget on hiring someone that knows what they're doing to come and shoot in use case like photos. You're going to want those for email. You're going to want those for your site. You're going to want those for then using text overlays on ads. I'd probably spend a little bit of money there. Not a ton, but a little bit, maybe like $1,000. And from that, then, I mean, the majority of it then, and this is the hardest thing about launch brands, like, you have no social proof. So if I were you, if I were to do anything, I don't know how many units you're going to order, but let's say you order 500 or 1,000 units to start. I'd put 25 to 50 of those units aside to send to people who can be friends, who can order it from your site for free, or even just like at cost plus shipping, and have them leave a review and have them post a photo review. Like, without a doubt, if you can have them do that just prior to even launching any ads, your site will perform much better. As soon as you're trying to drive cold traffic to a brand that no one's ever seen before, that you don't have any followers, you have no social proof, like from the ad perspective to the landing page to the site, like, having reviews is just a non-negotiable. So I would do that first.
That's a really good point. On the social side, is it worth trying to build up the social accounts before I launch the brand? Just by putting out content that's relevant and people like and mass consumed, just to get followers, and then wiping all of that content off, renaming it, and then just chucking the brand up?
I wouldn't worry about Instagram followers. There's no correlation to Instagram followers to revenue. We've never seen it ever before. I mean, we have brands that are doing 9 figures in revenue that have 10K followers, right? Like, there's no relation. I think TikTok is a really interesting platform. I think like we've been starting to play with it a little bit more for one of our brands, hiring a creator to post videos about the product. I think you probably do that next. I think you kind of need to nail down the value props, nail down the positioning first. And I think you can do that with paid. And you'll learn that a little bit quicker than just like having people post content on TikTok about it. But I wouldn't worry too much about it, to be honest. I would just make sure the pages look like fully like it's a real business. Make sure like, there's content on it, that, the bios are right, the links are right, on your Facebook pages, on your Instagram pages. Like, yeah, just make sure like it looks polished. That's all I would say. Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about that, to be honest. Especially if like with your background is paid as well. I mean, like, for us, we didn't care about that at all. It was like, get some photos up that were lifestyle photos of the products on the Instagram pages, on the Facebook pages, and then go run ads. It doesn't really matter from there. You can definitely go 0 to 100K without like any followers.
Minimum margins.
Okay, margin, or like margin with the product landed at the customer's door. Two separate things, but both very important to think about, right?
Let's take out delivery for now.
Okay, take out delivery. I like 80% margin plus. So whatever product cost you 10, you sell it for 50. Um, that's pretty ideal. Again, then cost of delivery is a huge component, right? The lower your AOV, looking at these grips, like I can't imagine your AOV is going to be less than or more than, I should say, more than 80. So I think like
Mhm.
um trying to keep your cost of delivery as little of a percentage of your AOV as possible is obviously the move. So yeah, 80+% margins, you can definitely win.
Charge for delivery or
A-
don't?
a- After discount too. That's one key piece. 80% gross margin after discount. So if you're going to be running bundles or a 10% off, 15% off first purchase, make sure that you're still sitting in that range. Charge for shipping. It's a great way to push AOV up. I would definitely test it. I don't know if you've used the app or are familiar with Intelligence, but we've been using that constantly. I would, without a doubt, when you go to launch, install that and be testing pricing of product. So let's say like your grips, you were thinking of going to market at like 50. I would test 39, 49, 50, 54, 59 with Intelligence, and I would also run an A/B test where you're charging for shipping, not charging for shipping with a threshold, because within like 30 days you'll learn pretty quickly which one of those is going to stand out. Price testing product is honestly like people don't do it enough on launch. Like that's what's allowed us to unlock Frey, to be honest, is like we price tested bundles, and we were able to get AOV at a spot and price point at a spot where conversion rate, AOV, everything like lined up. um, that's huge.
Logistics. I know you do it yourself. I think I've got a hunch that you literally did that just so you could build your own gym. I'm not sure. But if that wasn't the
Yeah.
case, um, would you suggest initially using a 3PL? Now, bear in mind, my initial market is the UK, and the UK is a fraction of the size of the US.
um, I think you should ship orders yourself. I think as long as like your cost to deliver the product, like here in the US, we have like the US Postal Service. It's the cheapest way to ship products that are lightweight. Um, so I can't go to 3PL and get a cheaper shipment. Actually, if we use the US Postal Service, like that is a flat fee across no matter who you are. So I think depending on what your cost of delivery is, that would be my leading indicator. If it's 1,000 orders, you can get those out. Like that's honestly like that's kind of fun. Like for us on all the launch brands, we'll always do handwritten notes to all the customers. Goes a long way. Those little touches like that in the very beginning, I feel like are helpful. Also, you'll learn a lot of like what are the shipping boxes or poly bags or what should I be using best to like, so that the product arrives safely and nicely and that the customers like it and it's a good experience. I think like doing that in house to start is totally fine.
Do you invest in packaging and the unboxing experience anymore or not?
Um, so these first few brands, no. I mean, like not in the very beginning, just straight white poly bags for the apparel. We did like a custom insert, like a thank you card, with then a handwritten note for the first like, I don't know, 10,000 orders. Um, I think that goes a longer way than like a custom bag, custom box. Like if you can put a little note in there that's from you, I think that goes farther than like having all of that stuff super dialed. Um, I don't think it's absolutely necessary. No.
How do you put in a stop loss? When do you know when to say this isn't working?
It's a good question. I mean, I think that's just not over indexing on your first PO. Like I said earlier, like being okay selling out, I think is totally fine. So be comfortable with like the amount that you're going to put in that you might not get it all back. Like honestly, that's it. I think like let's say you put in a PO for 1,000 units of a product. If you can't sell through those 1,000 units in 6 months, there's probably something that's not working, right? Like you should be able to sell through those 1,000 units, hopefully in like 90 days or less. But I would say 6 months runway, 1,000 units is like a good starting point. Hard to say based on AOV, but that's kind of where that's a rough number that I can throw your way.
Final question is, if we're having this exact conversation, but Facebook was not a thing, didn't exist, what would your first channel advice be? Where should I go?
Ooh, that's a great one. Me as a paid marketer, I'd struggle with that question. Um, if Facebook does that mean like Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok don't exist, like all paid social, or just like Facebook ads don't exist?
Yeah, let's just wipe paid social off the face of the earth. It's never
Okay.
existed and it doesn't exist.
Paid social doesn't. I mean, like, I'd probably go to paid search and start playing there. I definitely play with like organic on like TikTok more. Um, we've been able to back into for like one of our brands that 1 million views is $20,000 in revenue. It's not that hard to hit 1 million views, like if you're clever enough and if you want to grind enough. So I
On
feel like
TikTok.
there's opportunities on TikTok. There's definitely ways to build a small to mid 7-figure business on TikTok organic, but it's then just about, can you actually create engaging content that people want to watch and that's interesting. So I mean, like for you with the grips, it'd probably be like going to gyms and like recording people and seeing how many pull-ups they could do without the grips and then how many pull-ups they could do with the grips, right? Like that's something that I feel like any like gym rat would love to watch.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, just an idea.
Where's the hate for YouTube coming from?
um as far as like posting on YouTube and making content on YouTube,
Just in general, I mean,
I think it's just harder. I think it's
right.
just harder, to be honest. Like I think like what people expect from YouTube is definitely like more polished, more work, more energy to put it in to like create something that's actually going to gain traction and views. Shorts can definitely work. We haven't seen the revenue correlation from shorts to e-commerce revenue that we have from TikTok views to D2C revenue. So that's why I'm kind of mentioning that. Yeah, and also just YouTube isn't really something that I've really ever specialized in personally. So hard to say. I'm sure it can work for some brands, but for us, we haven't really doubled down on that yet.
And here's my actual final question. What should I have
Cool.
asked you that you think is very valuable? Some piece of information that you know about that people who listen to this will be like, holy shit. And I didn't ask you because I'm a terrible host. What should I have asked?
That's a good question. I think people give up on like just like funnel hacking in D2C. I think like they build their website and then they try some landing pages and then they try to win it all with like ads. I think that like price testing, like I mentioned with IntelliGems, is massive. I think offer testing is massive. Adjusting website CRO, like there's a couple of people on Twitter like Audit. I don't know if you followed them. They're like a
Yeah.
CRO agency that designs really, really good. Honestly, all you need to do is go to their Twitter page, go to their media, which is just all the images of their before and after, scrape every single one of them, put them in a Figma file, and then scrape your site and then just compare and contrast. There's probably a lot of things that you can improve on your website by just doing that. Um, and then the funnel hacking stuff. I mean, like brands that refuse to test new offers are brands that aren't going to win forever. Like offers is such a key component of this. They just everyone needs to always be testing new offers, in my opinion. And again, it might just be, can I get a little bit more contribution margin out of it at the end of the day? Like if I increase my prices by 10% and then offer an additional 5% off discount beyond what I was, is there an extra $3 I can put to the bottom line for every order? Like there's stuff like that I feel like not enough brands, they kind of give up on that. So like for us, that's kind of our secret sauce, is we'll never give up on that stuff. And I think that's why we'll win in our categories.
All right, man. Appreciate your time. What an interesting chat. And I hope you got some valuable information from that. I certainly did. And we will see you next week. This show, as always, is brought to you by Rewind and SendLane.